On today's show, we're going to explore the most important Instagram updates for us as marketers that we need to know about, including Instagram has been yo-yoing back and forth on their advice on Reels. So we'll make sure that you know what the latest is straight from them. Also, the way watch time is measured is switching up a little bit. So we'll get you the latest clarity around that because that's obviously an important metric. And some really interesting things being tested across all kinds of things, including if you struggle to stay organized or if you manage Instagram for clients. Those are two different features that are being tested. We'll fill you in on all that on the show right now. My name is Jerry Potter, host of the Social Media Marketing Talk Show, a Social Media Examiner production, where we break down all the latest social media news and what it means for marketers like you. Today, I'm joined by Amber Figlow. Amber is a content strategist who helps entrepreneurs easily create content to market their business. She regularly creates videos on our YouTube channel focused on content repurposing and has a course called The Content System. Amber, welcome to the show.
Hello, thanks for having me.
So a lot of stuff going on with the news coming out about Reels from Instagram. First they say this, then they switch to something else, which is not new, but let's make sure that we always know the latest, right? So update is starting with this Instagram Reels ranking system. What is the latest that Instagram is saying about how Reels get ranked?
Yes, so we've gone back and forth, and anytime we see, I don't know about you, it's jump scare on our timelines when we see Messeri come up and just completely shatter our world sometimes. But with the latest and greatest, they are going to start ranking different factors across your reels, if you will. Sometimes it's shares, sometimes it's saves. And here's my thought, my opinion, and then we can dive into exactly what Messeri says. You need to prioritize good content first and foremost. But what we're wanting to do is optimize your piece of content so that people can easily share it, can easily save it, and it's something that they're going to want to digest. So basically what we're wanting to do, and after I have reviewed all of Messeri's updates, because again, sometimes he's like, saves are the best, sometimes it's shares, sometimes it's comments. I think the general synopsis here is that we want to capture the attention. This is something I talk about all the time, is getting people to stop the scroll and understand what the video is about in those first 3 seconds so that we can optimize for the shares, for the saves. Now, I know you have the full ranking pulled out and you know, sometimes with Messeri, we'll see different things in the news and what he says. But as of right now, I think the latest was shares and saves are the priority, correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's always been the case as
Yes.
well. Watch time is obviously still going to be important.
Yes.
We'll tell you about the changes to that in a second. One thing I thought was interesting in all of the stuff that they said, I liked that they tried to remind people that these as Reels are going out to new people. So like what I always tell my clients, you know, that first 3 seconds is not just to hook them in. They do not know you. They do not like you. They do not trust you.
Yes.
So you've got to not only hook them in, but make them want to keep watching. And so I think that's interesting. But they also kind of, you know, said things like, make more Reels because you'll get better. And, you know, the unpredictability of recommendations, this quote, the unpredictability of recommendations gives all creators a fair opportunity to reach new audiences. So some of the stuff feels like really good on the user side, but then feels like it's also dripping with, this is what we want on the back end too.
Yes, totally. And that's kind of always been Messeri, no matter which metric he's prioritizing or whatever he says or whatever Instagram comes out and say, they always have been consistent on one thing, is produce more Reels. That's at least, I don't know if you've noticed that, that's the one common denominator I see across all of these different updates and how they rank and things like that. Their end all be all is always like, make more Reels so you can get better. But I'm like, I think there's slight motive behind that. But it is, I will say, actually a good piece of advice. Now, I'm not telling you to go and create 5 Reels every single day, but the more you practice, the better you will get at it, number one. And then number two, it is sometimes a math game. You don't have to go and produce, again, a million different Reels. But the more Reels you produce, the more eyeballs it could potentially reach. So take that with a grain of salt, but I agree. They're always like, just produce more content. So
Yeah, and they stopped short of actually coming out and saying you should post every day, a reel every day. They
Yeah,
just used the word regularly. So we all get
correct.
to interpret that however we may want to. All right. Watch time has, of course, always been a big part of Reels, which we'll talk about here in a second. But real quick, I just want to remind people you only have a few more days to get your virtual ticket for Social Media Marketing World. Now, the event happened. Amber and I were in San Diego for it last week. It was amazing. The replays, though, you can get all of them with a virtual ticket. Watch every keynote, every session, every workshop for at a fraction of what people paid to be there in person. Cliff Winkler said that they provide you with all the sessions. And so for the coming months, I'll have resources on a lot of different topics as they come up with our clients. And it really is that type of thing. I mean, even stuff from 2024's Social Media Marketing World. Sometimes I go back and look at those as well. If you want to take a look at these and grab them while they're still available, go to socialmediamarketing.world to get access to all the keynotes, sessions, and workshops. Now, again, socialmediamarketing.world. All right. Let's talk about watch time. So you kept saying Mosseri, who is Adam Mosseri, for people that don't know, head of Instagram. And now he's talking about how watch time is a little bit different. And this is something that I think gets confusing for all of us on multiple platforms. Like YouTube is my primary platform too. So first, kind of tell us what he said, and then what are your interpretations around it?
Yeah, so they're going to start looking at the big number that I took out here is it doesn't matter if you're producing that 90-second reel or that 10-second trending audio. They're looking at those first 10 seconds ranked almost the same. It's not like percentage of watch time. It is, did somebody watch for those first 10 seconds no matter the video length, which I found very interesting and can get a little confusing. And it's one of those things I'm interested in seeing over time because I'm a person who I produce those longer talking to camera reels. I rarely jump on a trending audio, and I've always worried about my watch time because Instagram, you want a lot of the user behavior and a lot of the things people are creating are those trending type of reels that are under 10 seconds. And I'm like, well, somebody that might be my competitor who's creating those, they are getting their entire 10-second video watched 100% completion. Whereas me, I'm like, I'm getting the same. Let's say somebody watches my video for 10 seconds, but my entire reel is 90 seconds long. Our watch time might be the same, but the percentage of watch time is different. So I'm like, how does that rank? And basically, my understanding of it is they're shifting it so that those watch times are now equivalent in the ranking system, no matter how long the video itself is. That was my interpretation. And I know that's a lot of math and gets very, very confusing.
Well, except it's not. It's, 10 seconds is 10 seconds, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, they said this approach ensures longer videos aren't penalized in the recommendation system, which is really interesting because generally it has been that. Like if somebody watches 10 seconds of a 90-second reel, you'd assume that means they didn't enjoy it. But what he's saying, it sounds like, is if you kept them here for 10 seconds, you get credit for that.
We're rewarding you for the 10. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Instead of that full completion, that 100% completion, which in those longer form reels, if you will, it sometimes is hard to reach that 100% completion or even anything over 30%, at least for me in the numbers that I've seen. So yeah, it's nice to know that I'm not being penalized for creating longer content as well.
Well, and it would be interesting. I think it'd definitely be worth testing now that they've announced this, especially because if I watch a whole 10-second reel, I don't remember who you were 3 reels later.
Correct.
Right. But if I watch 45 or 60 seconds of a 90, I might actually remember who you were.
Correct. Remember who I am, maybe recognize my face, and maybe hit the follow button. That's why it's like some of my favorite content. I build connection with the audience in those longer pieces versus a trending audio. And it's nice to see Instagram almost rewarding that equally.
Yeah. All right. And then when it comes to reels length, you mentioned making 90-second reels. That was the limit once upon a time. And then they said, all video. First, it was all videos show up as reels. So if you did an 8-minute video, it was a reel all of a sudden. And they said, but don't make them longer than 90. Then they said, now reels can be 3 minutes, but also longer. Like it's always been confusing. But how long now are they saying that reels should be if we want to reach new people? Because that's the key, right? If we want to reach new people.
So I think when it comes to how they've bounced back and forth between 90 seconds, 3 minutes, the optimal time is up to 3 minutes now. And I think that's a way for them to compete with other platforms who shall not be named, because that is a
You don't want
cultural
to say
shift.
TikTok?
TikTok. Let's just say TikTok.
Okay. We've got a Voldemort thing going on here.
Yes, totally. Listen, sometimes when you talk about TikTok and Instagram together, it can cause quite a ruckus.
Okay.
And even with YouTube Shorts, we saw that as well, that 3-minute extension.
Yeah.
To reach new people, I personally don't have the data on that. So if we've got the numbers, I would love to hear those. But it is up to that 3-minute now.
Well, again, I think at this point, unless somebody has their own case study, this is only just based on what Messeri says, which is, yeah, you can go up to 3 minutes now and reach new people.
Yes.
So again, this is all going to come back to obviously, testing it. And I think, the thing I always like to remind people of with these changes is just because Instagram says this is what it is now, if the consumer behavior doesn't follow, then it doesn't matter what Instagram thinks. Right?
Absolutely.
Which is a unintentional, perfect segue into the next story, a feature that Instagram was like, everybody do this. And now they're taking it away after a few months. So what's this update about?
Notes. Is that the one we're talking about? Yep. I was going to say notes. Personally, on my very own business, my personal brand, I did not get the notes feature until a couple weeks ago, right before they ripped the Band-Aid off. So it was a feature that they slowly dripped out, kind of didn't work for some people, kind of did. I got it on my personal Instagram. It was a feature that I personally did not use, I did not interact with, and it's a feature I don't think many of us will miss. I know some people loved it. They would like share what they were doing that day. And I think some people even had the notes feature where you could add music to it, which is giving MySpace days. But
yeah, well, to be clear though, they're removing the notes from where you could add notes to posts and reels, but the ones that are in the DMs at the top are still there.
Okay,
so you can still do that part. Yeah.
That part. Okay, that was the part that I personally was very confused on. I was like, I never had either. I didn't have either feature until a couple weeks ago, and it never showed up for me. I know we were talking about this earlier. I'm logged into multiple different accounts. I, again, don't think it's a feature that most people are going to miss. Most people didn't ask for.
Yeah. Okay. Another feature coming to Instagram from TikTok. I shouldn't say coming from TikTok, but being borrowed or stolen from TikTok is, which I didn't know TikTok had this. You'll be able to watch Reels at 2x speed.
Yes, this is a feature that we have all been asking for, and I see people very, very happy about. So if you tap and hold on the right side of the screen as you are viewing the reel, it will now play in 2x speed, which is a feature, again, borrowed from TikTok. It is, feeding our dopamine levels, and we can get through those longer reels now at a 2x speed, which I think is going to be beneficial for all the things we've already mentioned. The watch time, especially if you're creating up to 3 minutes. This is how you're going to make sure to keep people around longer. And it's a feature that will allow people to watch that video at a faster speed. This is one I'm very, very happy about. And I'm glad they actually borrowed this one from TikTok.
So from a marketer standpoint, do you think it'd be worth even saying, here's what I'm going to explain to you, and if you think I talk too slow, hold down on the right side of your screen and you can watch it 2x?
Yes, so this is actually a very popular trend over on TikTok, and I'll be interested to see if it follows on Reels, where we have our common hook where, hey, I'm so-and-so, this is what I'm going to be talking about today. Sometimes they'll say it in the video, watch it 2x speed. Sometimes they will literally put text on the screen that says press here for 2x to really encourage people to have that behavior. And I think that would be great to put on your Instagram Reels, especially as they're rolling this feature out and people don't know what it is yet. Yeah. Think about the end user, the average everyday person isn't going to know that this feature exists until you prompt them into that behavior. So I think we will start to see that as a creator behavior, and then also we'll see users start to actually use it.
That's smart, because it would probably count as extra engagement, right? When they're touching the screen and not swiping away. Correct. And like you said, if they can get to the end of your 90-second reel, now I'm curious what Adam Messeri is going to say. If they watch a 90-second reel in 45 seconds, does that count as 45 seconds or does it count as 90 seconds?
I was going to say that'll be an interesting metric to see. I know on TikTok, at least as of the latest, they count, even if you watch it in 2x, they count it at the normal second rate. So if you're watching a 90-second TikTok in 2x, even though you watch for 45, they count the full 90. Okay. So yeah, at least that was the latest metric. And I could assume Instagram may be doing the same. As long as we can get that watch time and that completion rate up, I think that's going to be a game changer for us.
I'm sure it will be the same, even just for consumers. So,
absolutely.
All right. One thing that, that most platforms have had and Instagram hasn't is the ability to share again to the feed. We've been able to share to stories and share to DMs, but now they're calling it the repost feature. People have been doing repost with third-party apps illegally for years, but we finally have repost on Instagram. So how exactly does this work? What can we repost and things like that?
Yes. So this is a feature that is starting to be rolled out. And this is one that I actually don't have access to yet. And just know with any of these new features we talk about that is always a thing with Instagram. Some of you may have the feature and some of you may not. But this is it's also a concept borrowed from other social platforms where you can simply, instead of sharing to stories, instead of, like you mentioned, sharing to DMs, you can hit the repost feature and it will show up, let's say you want to reshare a reel, it will show up in the feed. And I don't know if they're testing this yet or not. It might say your name. Like, this is how it works on TikTok. If I, Amber, repost somebody else's video, it will say at the bottom, Amber has reposted this. This is why it's showing up on your feed, that kind of thing. So your followers will then be able to see that piece of content that you have reposted. And they also mentioned that we may have a tab dedicated on our profile for the repost, which again is a feature on TikTok as well.
Yeah.
So it should be interesting. And I like that. I am actually very excited for this feature. And if you're reposting illegally, that's a great way to violate community guidelines and terms and conditions and get your account shut down. So I think this is, again, going to change the behavior for the better on Instagram.
Well, and the law.
Yeah, the law too. Yes, that too.
I just pulled up my phone. I was like, do I have it yet? I didn't have it the other day. And I think one thing to point out, like on Facebook, Meta's other big platform, you can actually share your own content, like with a new thought on top, or they encourage you to share your old stories or older posts. But on Instagram, you cannot reshare your own content. It's only for resharing or reposting other people's content.
Mm-hmm, yes.
So slight differentiation there. So, all right, a bunch of things being tested on Instagram. And sometimes, when these come out, I think people like Amber and I don't want to speak for you, but some of them were just like, what? That's awesome. And sometimes we roll our eyes like, what? Yes. What's happening here? So, but let's go through each one of these. What are some of these new features that we can maybe hope to see soon on Instagram?
Yeah, so I think, remind me which one we have first. I know there's a couple of coming out. So which one was
the task? Let's talk about the task feature one.
Task feature.
And then we can go in order.
So the Instagram task feature. So this is going to be specifically in your DMs with AI automation of creating tasks within the DM itself. And that is as much as I know. I was looking at the feature a little bit. And again, these are coming from, I believe developers are testing these and finding these. But it will allow you to assign specific tasks to a specific DM. Correct me if I'm wrong, though.
Yeah, well, and it's we don't really know exactly what this is going to look like yet, but it seems to be, when you think about DMs, we've already seen these features in email tools over the last couple of years and stuff like that. So if somebody says, hey, call me tomorrow, then maybe it prompts you to say, would you like to be reminded tomorrow within Instagram?
Yes.
So it is interesting to see because obviously, sometimes I look at in Mark Zuckerberg's eyes when he's on TV, and I almost feel like he's already envisioning a world in 5 years where there is no Facebook and Instagram. It's all Meta AI or something like that. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. But this kind of stuff, it's almost bringing in, organization and other things like that. It also plays right back into what Instagram said, I think at the end of last year, which was, we want to focus on being a platform where people message their friends.
Yes.
Which is not what we wanted to hear, but
yes, you're like, didn't you guys buy WhatsApp for that? Like, isn't that how, I was like, I thought we had other tools for that, but yes, I completely agree.
Yeah. All right. Another thing they're testing is called Instagram Blend. What is this one?
So right now, the behavior that we tend to have with Instagram Reels is that we will share them and DM specific Reels to our friends. And I don't know about you, but I'm the kind of person, my poor friends, they will get about 10 different DMs from me throughout the day of Reels that I thought were funny and interesting. And so now, instead, though, what they're saying is you're going to be able to jump into this blend area and you guys can view a Reels feed together of things that you might both see organically in your Reels feed. So you're not having to share things back and forth. This one, I'm a little hesitant on. It's not my favorite, and I'm interested to see if this actually kind of launches and has some success.
Well, it's one of those things where, again, are the consumers going to be okay with that? It also made me wonder from a consumer standpoint, I think some people probably, people tell me sometimes they're like, oh yeah, I have this habit where if I'm with somebody, I'm like, could I just borrow your phone and just browse through some of your feeds.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
because you can learn so much, right? Because our feeds are so catered to us.
Yep.
And sometimes people say, no, I don't want you to know what I watch. So
Correct. So it'll be interesting, especially if you and your friend or whoever jumps in this blend together. If you have very different feeds and you start to see the overlap, maybe you'll see some of the same things. And then other times you're like, what are you watching at, midnight while you're doom scrolling or something like some weirder things might come up. You might learn a little bit about your friends too.
maybe that's the new level for the highest level of friendship. It's not
I
like
think
ride
so.
or die anymore. It
Yep.
is,
Let me look
I
through
will let
your
you watch my Instagram feed and see what
exactly.
I really look at.
Exactly.
So,
Yes.
all right, another one. This one I'm kind of excited about because of the potential engagement opportunities, and they're calling them lockable posts. So, explain
Yes.
exactly what this is based on what we know so far.
So to me, this reminded me of this is a feature that I don't use all that often, but in Instagram stories where you can shake to reveal, it's
Mhm.
giving something very similar. But when you go to post, let's say a reel, for instance, you can lock it and your community has to unlock it. I think they were testing around with like adding a keyword or doing a certain behavior to unlock that post. Now, I could see this going rogue one of two different ways. If we are marketers, we might try and use it to foster more engagement, but I could also see the end user being frustrated by this if it's really hard to unlock a piece of content. So I think it's going to need to be used very strategically. It could go one of two ways, though, and I think it could be either really, really good or really, really bad.
Well, I think it depends on how well you are able to tease it, right? Like,
Yes.
can you write can you write an 8-word hook where people are going to want to get it? And then I was thinking, if we could eventually get this set up so that then people, maybe you have a many chat automation, people have to comment, then they get a DM with the secret code. Um,
Yes.
but I always say sometimes when I work with people on new things they're launching, and people say, "Oh, it's not ready yet. I don't want to talk about it." And I'm like, when the best time, how you want to make somebody want something, talk about it when they can't get it. Like,
Exactly. Yes.
talk about it
Very
early. And
easy.
so
Yeah.
that's I think the really powerful thing. And I kept thinking about the DMs, like for businesses that thrive on building relationships with the DMs. These are not the Nikes of the world,
Yeah.
obviously,
Yep.
but for some of these other ones, just starting that conversation about anything can
Mhm.
potentially lead to so much more. So
Absolutely.
all right. And then I think this next one is a cool tool that might be helpful for people that do Instagram marketing for other brands, but you could also use it for your own brand if you were using that. And it's kind of an insights tool, right? Tell us what this one is.
So this one I have not seen and I have no access to. I don't know much about this one, but it's going to be something that's going to help agencies or if you are managing other Instagram accounts. So Jerry, think I might let you take this one over because this is one I am actually not familiar with.
Well, I've seen what you have, which is the screenshot
Yes.
so far.
Yeah.
But I can say on YouTube, they've been doing these things where they call them data stories. And instead of having to go in and I think this is the same thing. So instead of having to go in and look deep into analytics and then have to turn around and make beautiful slides and things like that to send to clients, like when I worked at an agency, my least favorite time of the month was reporting, right? And we had it pretty streamlined, but it was just like, oh my gosh. And so this is where I think what it'll do is it's giving you something you can almost just screenshot and send. You have that kind of relationship, or quickly put into a report. So it's essentially the data's been in insights. It's not new data, but it's kind of summarizing it. And I'm sure they're using AI on the back end for it as well.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see where that
Yes.
goes. And then speaking of AI, there's a new AI powered tools for Instagram partnership ads. And these are the ones where you can actually work with creators. And this looks pretty neat because essentially you can go in and it'll make suggestions of creators that you might want to hire or collaborate with on an ad, which I think opens up all kinds of possibilities, right, Amber?
Yeah, totally. And this is something, if you are exploring this on the brand side or the creator side, I am exploring it from the creator side because I tend to have brands, if I'm working on a brand partnership, they'll want to put ad spend behind some of my content or I'm creating certain things for the ad. This is just going to help make those brand partnerships, those brand collaborations, ads, UGC content, literally anything we can think of. I think it's going to be a nice little boost in the influencer marketing world, in the ad spend world, I think it's just going to help with the creativity a little bit more. So I'll be
Mhm.
interested to see this one roll out. But I know some people have hesitation toward using AI tools as well in this type of space. So it'll be interesting to see.
This is the type of space though that I think it's so helpful where it's taking all the data and
Yes.
it's, surfacing the important stuff to the top. So I think for brands like this is going to be right inside of Ads Manager.
Yes.
And so if you are if you're running ads for a client or you run them for your own company, it's going to basically suggest, creators that you could work with. And I just feel like, I know for years when I talk to people, like, oh, you ever work with influencers or creators? It's always kind of like, yeah, I don't even know where to find them. And I don't know if I can trust them. So it would be really interesting if this evolved to where, then creators could also have reviews from other brands they worked with. And so that as a marketer, you could go in and go, wow, this person's worked with these brands and they've got, 4.9 stars after working with 20 clients. Then all of a sudden, all of that worry hopefully melts away and it makes it easier to get in there.
Absolutely. And I think it could potentially get rid of some of the manual work of literally scrolling and searching through Instagram to find those brand partner or to find those creators for the brand partnerships for the influencer marketing. It takes out a little bit of the legwork of the monotonous part of that task there.
Yeah, and trying to decide, are these AI generated comments? Were they
Yes.
bought? Are they
Yep.
real? Do this, all of that. So, which is
Yes.
only going to get foggier in the
Yes.
coming
As
months.
we keep going. Yes.
So, all right, quick reminder, you can grab your virtual ticket, get every recording from Social Media Marketing World right now, but only for a few more days. Just go to socialmediamarketing.world to grab those. Again, socialmediamarketing.world. And Amber, where can we discover more about you?
I am on Instagram. My name is Amber Figlow, Figlow. I'm on all the major platforms, but Instagram is the best place to connect with me. And that is where I love a good DM conversation. Hope you don't mind a voice note. But yeah, you can find me anywhere at Amber Figlow.
Awesome. All right. And if you want to add another podcast to your listening lineup, couple for you to check out the AI Explored podcast, as well as the Social Media Marketing podcast. Until next time, may you be wise with your marketing decisions. Thanks, everyone. Bye.